Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Scott, Skidz, Alford.
And you'll be maxing out your 30-month sentence.
So how much more time did you have to do?
At that point, it was another 13 months.
Are you like, I'm just going to do my time? And
yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. The whole thing was a fucking small sentence. It was just aggravating. And now come to find out from my American Civil Liberties attorney, it put me outside the window of a compensation case with the state of Pennsylvania. So now, if you know chess at all, you look at it and you say, bonsai. Yeah. That's why they kept you. Here, they're letting me out of the prison 12 hours a day to work. I'm out on I-80. You know, I could leave anytime I want in their vehicle, a Ford F-550, brand new dump truck with a turnpike pass in it. And I'm out there unsupervised doing jobs. We were out there doing different kind of jobs for state. But I remain a danger to society and need to be held in the prison another 15 months, huh?
You could have left anytime.
I could have drove. It would have been an escape, but I could have drove away, and they wouldn't know for another 10 hours that I was, but it just wasn't worth it. And that's how you get that job, is your sentence is so small and humorous that it doesn't, why would you run? But here they keep me the additional months, which actually pan out to be to the date where now we have to do some finagling to sue for any kind of compensation from the state. And the attorney asked me, what you lost monetarily isn't very much. So where do you want to set the bar at with a lawsuit? And I said, I'm no attorney, but I've been around. I think the state of Pennsylvania set the bar the day they put a $5 million cash bail on a man who has currently been charged with not one thing that was on that venue. The case I took to Bucks County Jail and the case I took on to prison was from a foot cop in a nothing suburban town that no one will ever hear about again. It was a harassment charge. People get them every day. I never went to prison for Brittany or any of the things that went on in this case or with this trooper. This trooper, put a $5 million price tag on my head and then went ahead and pushed false fraudulent charges on someone. And that was thrown out of court, dismissed across the board. Every count, the Pennsylvania statement, all the way up to no inspection, man.
How come you didn't think about bringing the rest to trial?
I did. And the problem with it was they would instate the gun charge. And actually, in the long run, what I did was to protect the club. Because had I fought the case, they can then enact a warrant looking for the handgun that was described, which means every pagan in the country is open to being stopped on the side of the road and saying, we have the proper cause to do this. We're looking for your guy's handgun. Who do you give it to? A gun that never existed. I've had plenty of firearms in my past, and I've never had one that fit the description that this woman gave in court. And when they asked her about the description, she said that was what the trooper had described the weapon to look like. And the judge was like, excuse me? She said, yeah, that was what the state policeman told me to describe the weapon as. And it was like, oh my God, man, this is going to get bad before it gets worse. And it was like, how long until the state attorney general busts in here and takes this case? And we flip the script on these dudes. And I don't know how far along it is. Maybe they're doing it now. I don't know. They're not going to tell me, and they're definitely not going to confer with me. And I definitely don't got them trying to get any kind of victory from me. But at the end of the day, if we're going to fly this American flag over everything we do, I was out minding my business on the streets of America as a guy who pays taxes, and a lot of them. And I had no probation. I had no, I was just a guy on a motorcycle whose every civil liberty was violated that night, and then continued to be violated for 7 months as I was held hostage at this place for $5 million cash. And you put me on the front page of papers that, my grandsons will never unsee. Every time I put in a job application with using the Indeed, and when I came home, I didn't want favors from anybody. And I got favors. I'm looked after. I'm going to be fine. But every job application I went in, people were like, "You're out of your mind. You can't live in this apartment building. You can't be." I've had friends say, though, I'll rent the place and you live there, and they're like, "Damn, they even turned me down because I know you." That's a fucked up thing to do to somebody. So at the very least, I mean, this dude needs to be fired if he hasn't been already. I'm sure that the people that he works around aren't very fond of what he did. You used the Pagan name in this. This had nothing to do with the Pagans Motorcycle Club. Had no time to.
None of it
Had
did.
no time. If anything, this club told me to disconnect from this girl months before that. That brotherhood and that leadership that goes on for centuries in this world, you can't put a price on it, man. When the people around you are the best people to slap you in the face and say, "Wake up, dude, you're up here." And it was done. I'm not going to say it wasn't. It was, wake up, or listen, if you love her that much, step out for a while, take a time out, go handle your business, get your affairs in order. But you can't do both, man. And she's going to put somebody in danger. And hey, if she didn't, this became a snowball of a nothing case. And it can happen. Everybody wearing a cut. I don't care. Look me in the eye, Hell's Angel, who's watching this at home. Be forewarned, man. This can happen to any of us. And when you look into the fact that a sergeant at arms wearing a sergeant at arms patch, there's many guys in my club that won't wear the patch. They'll take the job, but they're not wearing a patch because that patch will get you extra time. And you got to be real diligent, man. This is how desperate law enforcement's become to break balls on guys who ride around and drink beer. I mean, which is essentially what we all are. We like to eat, we like to check out strippers, and we like to drink beer. And even that's becoming less and less. And they're going to try to make something out of nothing every time, man. So, if you think somebody might be being reckless, it could be a chance that he's not being reckless. He's just being reckless inside the diaphragm of what they've made it be today, man. Be diligent and be diligent about these telephones, man, because that one charge of the cellular device used during the crime of a crime syndicate or whatever it was they said it was, that was 15 years on that. I'd rather be caught with a gun and die with it in my hand than ever be put in a place that I just was under these, words.
For cell phone?
You put me in prison for words? I told that girl to stop texting underage children with pornography before someone got hurt. And I went to jail for that. Last time I checked, man, it's against the law to send pornography of any kind to someone's phone. They call it hate porn, and it's a federal felony. And there's people in the feds, trust me, I was there, that are in there for just that reason. Sending a picture of your ex-wife sucking to her new husband, that'll get you a lot of time in the feds. All they're going to do. Law enforcement is a slug. They don't do anything. Watch the first 48 and watch how these fat sit at a desk, get a picture of a dead kid, and then they ask a bunch of kids who might have killed this dead kid, and sooner or later, I don't know who killed that dead kid, but it might have been so and so, and they work off that information, and that's all they're doing with us is once they squeeze us for everything criminally, where anything's not a crime anymore, they're going to change the laws. I'm still shocked to death that Pennsylvania we ride around with no helmets on, because it's a great way for them to get us pulled over and lead to other things. And that's what would have happened had I fought this bullshit harassment charge. They would have instated the gun charge and then put a RICO warrant on every member of my club and kicked in doors or pulled over bikes of guys who've never even met me and said, "We're looking for Skidz' gun. Where's it at?" And as they find different things, then that leads to 1,100 other cases because, somebody told because they got caught with a bag of weed while they were looking for Skidz' gun. And I wasn't going to have it, man. At no point were they going to drag this club into this fiasco that Pennsylvania State Trooper Scott Soltow brought down on himself ultimately.
You're in jail or a prison, right? They send you upstate when you
get
convicted. Yep. And then you get denied parole.
What's parole.
It like when you leave for the last time, when you walk out, you max out, right? Do you have probation after or anything like that?
Yeah. Actually, with this, I had 48 months of probation to run concurrent with the 30 months that I was given. It was a bad deal. I shouldn't have took that. I've been fortunate. I do probation the right way. You know, I'm way more mature now, so the likelihood of me having a problem with some silly ass probation case is zero to none. You know, I don't party anymore. I don't have any of those kind of issues. I definitely don't involve myself in anything criminal. You know, my probation people like to hear stories, wild stories from the Pagans. I plan on writing a book about my life with the club. It'll be the first time that a pagan did this, so I did ask through the proper channels, and they're fine with it because of the damage that I accepted ultimately in the name of this club. Because if I'm not a pagan, let's face it, if I'm not the pagan guy, and this case happens, very likely whoever it was would have been home the same night with no remarks on anything happening. This was a way out of control trooper reaching to make a name for himself, and he sure did this time. And this was a bunch of reporters who jumped the shark and ran all crazy headlines. And I'll make another note. Levittown Now, they printed Pagans leader arrested in murder for hire plot. You know, that's the original headline that busted the next day. They've yet to do an update, a retraction, anything, any kind of correction whatsoever in that case. And shame on them for that, because that's actually a local paper, and you would think they'd know better. Maybe they still have time to do that. I don't know. If we can find a way around them putting me outside the loophole of this damages claim, and they can find criminal negligence on the part of the state police, there's very likely going to be some highways that I'm going to name after myself in this area to remind them to never forget. You know, I've never ever put myself in an altercation where somebody didn't have it coming.